The first story is as follows. Our block has many houses on it, and they all have iron black fences that are around 5 to 6 high with gates. Behind each fence, most people have some plants or a little garden or a tree. You get the idea. It's clear these belong of the respective houses. In front of my family's house, we have a small cactus garden, and then we have some tall planters with some succulents in them, and then we have a little vegetable garden with some tomatoes, basil, etc. My grandmother is really into plants, and it's given her stuff to do in this pandemic. The two planters with succulents are closest to the fence, so someone could stick their hand in and take plants out if they wanted to. I'm walking home and I, a woman, sticking her hands through the fence. I think she's taking our tomatoes, so I speed walk up to her and ask her what she is doing. I said, "Hi, this is my garden. What are you doing?" "Oh, hi," she answered. "You have a lovely garden. I'm not damaging anything, and I'm just taking some of these succulents and then some of these plants." I look, and while she did take some succulents, she also just picked weeds out of our garden. I said to her, "I'd appreciate it if you gave those succulents back. They're our plants, but you realize you just took weeds out too, right?" She didn't look bothered and said, "Oh, I took some pictures of these succulents for my photography class and everyone loved the pictures, so I thought I'd take some." I guess you can have the weeds, but I'd like my other plants back," I told her. She just kinda got flustered and left after that. I did get my succulents back then. She was more embarrassed about taking weeds than stealing plants out of my garden. And this whole photography class thing was really weird to me. But whatever, she can keep her random weeds. Weirdest experience ever. And I'll never get how people think they can just stick their hands into someone else's garden and take their stuff. The next story is as follows. My fiancé and I recently moved into a new house. It was the first house we bought and it was the perfect starter home. The house was small but came with a large backyard, and as someone who loved sitting outside and hosting gatherings where I would barbecue, I loved my backyard. A note about this house is that in the middle of the giant backyard, there was basically a permanent playground that the previous owners had set up. It kind of looked like a playground you'd find at a public park. It was a giant sandbox that had swing, a swirly slide, and monkey bars. It was a pretty impressive looking playground. But the thing is that the wife and I were making plans on removing the playground and getting rid of it since we aren't planning to have kids. We planned on redesigning the whole backyard, planting trees, adding new landscape, etc. A few days after moving in, we hired some people so they could come take apart the monkey bars and pull out the swings that were embedded into the sandbox. Anyway, before this story gets too long, this is where the entitled Karen comes in. So, not long after we took it down, maybe a few days, we get a knock on the door. It was Karen, our next door neighbor. Karen doesn't introduce herself and demands, "Hey, I noticed you took down the playset. What was the reasoning? Why'd you take it down?" Confused, I ask, "Who are you?" "I live next door. I'd like to know why you took down the playground you had back there. It was mine." I was really confused at this point, because how could it be hers when it was in my backyard? I told her that we took it down because my wife and I were planning on redoing the whole backyard and would love to put a gazebo and build a deck right where the playground was sitting. That didn't sit well with her. She asked, "Where did you put it? That used to be my playset. I gifted it to the next door neighbors so our kids can play on it together. My kids go play on it every Friday after school until I get home from work." I told her the previous owner may have allowed that to happen, and again, I told her that my wife and I wanted to redo the backyard since it's our property now. His Karen actually got huffy and upset and told us that the neighbor promised her when she moved away that the playground would stay up for the kids to play on. She then got upset at me because for years her kids would come over and play on the playground, and how dare I move into the neighborhood and start changing things on her, and demanded I put it back. Once I told her that we basically scrapped it, she then also demanded to know where I put all of the old playground stuff and not asked me to go get it. She then threatened me told me her friend is a police officer and she's going to charge me with theft because I essentially threw away her property even though it was a gift to the old neighbors. So yeah, I lived beside a Karen, and no, the cops never came knocking on my door. The next story is titled as Update, the "We are entitled to silence downstairs neighbors." So a couple weeks back, I posted about the old couple who lived downstairs from me who called the cops because my cat was running around and the microwave being used at 10:30 at night. and then proceeded to tell me that they are entitled to silence whenever they wanted it. Well, they've started branching out to other people and also now have added a healthy dash of racism into their vocabulary. 1. Across the street is a large Hispanic family with lots of kids and a grandma who sits out on the front porch with her little lap dog. The dog barks a lot. Yes, the yappy little barks are annoying, but she's not out there all the time, and she has every right to enjoy sitting on her front porch for a bit with her obviously well-loved dog. Yes, the kids run around screaming when they have their inflatable pool up in the backyard, but most of the time they keep it to a reasonable kids having fun noise. 2 days ago, these folks were having a get-together, nothing loud or crazy, just a normal backyard barbecue, and it was around 8 p.m. when I hear, "Shut that damn dog up and be quiet or I'll call the cops." And then, in a lower voice, "Those people are a damn nuisance and nobody should have to deal with their kind. They aren't even speaking English." 2. One of the 4 apartments in my building is occupied by a very nice man who is friends with or related to the folks across the street. He's over there a lot. Anyway, he has a motorcycle that he works on in his parking spot and goes for rides on nice days. He also likes to sit in his car after work and smoke a joint, legal in my state. I overheard the old lady saying, "He's one of those motorcycle gang people and he's out there doing drugs. He's obviously a criminal, most of these Mexicans are. And then, if he doesn't stop driving that motorcycle and doing drugs, I'm going to call the cops." Number 3. And once again I hear the words, "We are entitled to silence when we want silence," shouted from out of their open window. Note that the threat of cops being called on the people across the street was at 8 p.m. on a Saturday night. It wasn't even dark yet. They weren't playing music or screaming or anything, just talking and laughing and having fun. The threat to the other tenant was on Sunday afternoon. At this exact moment, it is 11:30 p.m. I am in my bedroom and I can hear them talking downstairs. If I felt like actually making the effort, I would stomp on the floor and shout, "Shut up, I'm trying to sleep," but it's really not worth the effort right now. The next story is as follows. This happened this morning between 9 and 10 a.m. I went to the supermarket to grab a few things for lunch and dinner. It's early and slow, so the store only had the self-checkout and one register open. As I got to the register, I see a young woman in her early 20s with a sleeping baby in her arms and a basket with formula, diapers, over-the-counter baby items for diaper rash, and several prescriptions that were paid for at the pharmacy. The girl gets to the register before me, and then I saw the rampaging Karen come out of the aisle right in front of me. I knew there'd be trouble from the oversized sunglasses, Karen haircut, yoga pants 3 sizes smaller than they should have been, and the very low-cut top that showed off a lot of skin that no one I knew wanted to see. She has maybe a dozen items in her cart. With the global situation, the clerk, the 20-something girl, and I are wearing the required mask, but of course Karen can't be bothered and she's also ignoring the 6 feet markings on the floor for social distancing. The young mother is holding the sleeping baby and trying to fish her wallet out of her small purse, while also holding the diaper bag and usual baby accessories. The cashier hadn't even finished ringing the girl up when the wild Karen starts complaining in a loud voice about unprepared shoppers, not even having their money ready. Karen's cart is almost touching the 20-something's leg. Naturally, Karen's complaint at full volume had the unfortunate effect of waking the sleeping infant, who registered his displeasure by letting anyone within hearing distance know. The mother was attempting to calm the infant and still get her wallet out of her purse. The fact that Karen had to wait and now had to listen to the infant she woke up caused another nasty tirade. I'm in line behind Karen at this point, and what she does next makes me lose it. She's been berating the cashier for not being fast enough, and then she snaps at the young mother that she should make that brat be quiet. Additionally, Karen decided to attack the girl some more by shrieking that if she doesn't dress like a slut, she wouldn't have gotten knocked up. She said this because it was apparently obvious that the 20-something's jeans were too tight, as was her top. The young mother was beet red, the cashier was in shock, the infant, not liking the noise, was letting it be known that he wasn't happy. Karen had gotten on my last nerve, and being old, sick, and in a bad mood, I let loose. I slipped Karen and tossed my card to the cashier and told her the young lady's bill is on me. That got Karen to start yapping again, only for me to loudly say, "Shut up. I'm as tired of your mouth as the little man is." That stunned Karen, who could only sputter. The young mother thanked me and proceeded to give the infant her full attention. Karen is fuming and starts heavying her items onto the belt, but apparently Her mouth recovered before her brain. As soon as the cashier finished ringing her up and asked for payment, Karen turned towards me and sneered, "Well, aren't you going to pay for mine as well?" I was done and with her, and responded, "No, I don't like people who wake up sleeping infants with their big mouths." Karen huffed and stormed out. I was hoping for an "I demand to speak to the manager" moment, but you can't have everything. After I paid for my groceries, I headed to my car and was pulling out of the parking lot when saw the young mother sitting at the bus stop holding the infant. Buses out where I live run every hour, so I decided to offer her a ride. It turns out she lived only a couple miles away, under 15 minutes by car, but a couple of hours on foot, carrying a baby and supplies. I learned that she just moved to the area with her husband. They had moved here for his job. I asked her about the little man and learned that as her husband got paid, they bought more of the stuff the baby needed, but right now they were making do with what they had. I wrote an address down and told her that if her husband was off Saturday, she should have him bring them to the address for a yard sale with tons of baby stuff. It just so happened that my niece was getting rid of things as she had all the babies that she needed and had every supply that an infant would require. The girl told me that she'd make sure to pop by and thank me again for everything. I dropped them off and made it home and gave my niece a call describing the girl and infant and telling her to give the couple anything they liked and I would cover whatever they couldn't afford. The next story is titled as Former Coworker Demands a Job Because She's a Mother. In my previous job, I was a mid-level manager and I was assigned a small team to lead. This team was composed of 4 members. 3 of them were very hard workers who always finished their jobs and trying to learn as much as possible. The 4th one, well, she had to be asked continuously to finish her job, often tried to make others do her job, was late more often than not, would spend hours talking to others, not doing her job and disrupting others. I often asked my boss permission to fire her, but he pitied her because she's a single mother. She is, as in she's not married nor dating her kid's father, but the father and his parents live next to her and her parents and are all very much involved in the kid's life. He also forbade me from ever reprimanding her. Eventually, I was offered a better paying job and left the company. After a few months, I was offered a promotion that required me to assemble a team to lead. I could either choose from the company or bring new people. I decided to contact the hard-working members of my old team and offer them the new job. It was a no-brainer for them. Much better pay, much more benefits, better working conditions, and the possibility of WFH most days. They were happy of landing a better job together and I was happy to have my old team back. A couple of days later, the 4th member of my old team called me. She was very angry that I didn't offer her the job, knowing that as a mother, she could use the benefits and working hours. She demanded I hired her too, but I refused. Since I had no one forbidding me from being honest, I told her that her work ethics and performance are terrible, and that hiring her would be worse for me. There were so many more things I wanted to say, but I bit my tongue. She called me some names and hung up. Later that day, I received the weirdest and most stupid call of my career. The HR manager from my former company called me. This has to be the most stupid HR manager I've met. I have so many stories of her incompetence. Apparently, after calling me, my former coworker was angry and upset. HR noticed and asked what was wrong, and she told them. So the HR manager called me to reprimand me for making her upset, for treating my team unfairly and demanding that I either offered her a job in my new company or apologized. I laughed, argued with her for a bit, and hung up.